Hello, my name is Chelsea Nduli. Today I'm speaking to Professor Shawren Singh, who gave the keynote address at the STEMI conference. Professor, how are you?
I'm fine, and you, Chelsea?
I'm fine, okay. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for allowing us to speak to you. I'm just going to go straight into it. My first question, tell me about yourself and what do you do?
I'm a professor in the School of Computing at the University of South Africa in the Department of Information Systems in the College of Science, Engineering and Technology. I'm the chair of the department. We have over 60,000 students in the department, and I look after their interests. Apart from being an academic manager, I'm also a researcher. So I spend my time understanding problems that are close to my heart, and I write about those problems.
Nice. Why did you choose to study e-government, and was it always something that you wanted to study at a young age? And maybe also explain what e-government is.
So e-government is the study, or as it is now called digital government, is the study of how technology is used within government to improve service delivery for our citizens. When I was a much younger person, that subject never existed, right? I originally wanted to be an accountant. But when I went to university, I discovered computers, and I liked it, and I followed that path there. Why I studied digital government or e-government, right? When my first child was born, right, her name is Tara, and we spell her name T with an accent over the A-R-A, so it's pronounced as Tara, right? And when we tried to register my child with the local government authorities, they turned around and told me my child's name is spelled wrong. And that bothered me, and I went back to them and I told them that Tara is T-A-R-A with an accent over the first A. And their systems couldn't put the accent over the first A. So they removed it. And I told them that's not the way, because when you remove the A, it is then pronounced as Tara, which is something different. And because of that, I developed this need to understand why. Why was the system designed that way? And it was stopping people from expressing themselves. So the system was telling us how to express ourselves. So because of that, I went and did a PhD on that subject and tried to understand, is it the people that drive the system, or is it the system that drives the people? So that is how I got interested in digital government.
Nice. And you also spoke about the community of practice. Do you feel this is something that you had while you were studying? And why did you choose the topic for today?
So a community of practice has always existed in our societies. And I'll give you an example. You look at the old grannies, they would have the stokvels. What is a stokvel? Ultimately, a stokvel is not about money. It is about a community. It's about the community of these old ladies getting together with a shared objective. That shared objective is savings. So they band together and they save. They have one single objective, saving. Right? So that community of practice has always existed. We just never called it a community of practice. So when I was studying and I was in the process of completing my PhD, I was introduced to the idea of community of practice. And realize that actually we have these spaces in our communities, but we don't recognize them, we don't speak about them, and we don't use them. So started using communities of practice to share knowledge. Right? Why did I speak about communities of practice? This conference is entitled Communities of Practice. Right? And I wanted to understand, as somebody who's not part of this community, how they are using communities of practice to improve the STEM space. So that is why I spoke about communities of practice and knowledge cafes.
On that knowledge cafe, what is the knowledge cafe, and how do young learners stand to benefit from that?
So there are two things that happen. Right? So a knowledge cafe is a structured conversation. Right? We get like-minded people together who have a shared passion or objective to solve a particular issue. Right? Now, with communities of practices and knowledge cafes, we see opportunities. It's not a place for people to come and complain. Right? So teachers, like for example with this conference, would get together in a shared space because they have a shared issue that they would like to deal with, and they sit and they speak to each other how they would like to take advantage of that opportunity. And by the teachers doing that, they develop a better understanding of the problem, they develop a better understanding of how they can deal with it, and they empower themselves. They take that learning and take it to their classroom. Now the question is, how do the learners benefit from that? Why should each teacher reinvent the wheel? In a district, there might be 6 or 7 schools, and let's say, for example, the maths teacher is wants to improve the children's understanding of fractions. Why must that teacher have his own teaching plan, and the teacher down the road have his teaching plan, and the next teacher? Why doesn't each teacher say, okay, we've got this shared space, I will concentrate on fractions and I will share my experiences with you. The next teacher will concentrate on multiplication or division or mixed fractions, and I will share my experiences with you. And then we start learning as a community, and then the children benefit from the experience of those teachers.
Of course. My next question is, a lot of people are speaking about the age of information, how we're living in the age of information. These days you can just ask Google any question and you'll find it just a touch of a finger. But then we also know that there's a large community that are excluded from that, townships and rural areas that don't have internet access. How do we begin to bring those people in that part of the age of information, and how do we bring relevant information to those people?
You see, firstly, it's not necessarily a bad thing that they may have less access to this technology. It's not a bad thing, right? The question is, did we ask them, do they want access to this? That's the first question. Maybe they don't want access. Maybe it is not important for them. The problems, for example, or the challenges in KwaZulu-Natal that has just had recent floods is very different from Limpopo. Did we go and ask those communities what they want? How can we support them? Is it what they want in their space? Now, during the conference, you may have heard a number of people have said most scientists or most people only touched their beaker when they went to university. Did that disadvantage them from being scientists? It didn't. They were more creative. They found other ways of solving problems, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think, based on the evidence and what I see, if we work from a position of poverty, then we'll always be in a position of poverty. If we work from a position of abundance, then we will. Children, and I don't like the word rural, they're in less urbanized spaces, and their teachers are in less urbanized spaces. Those communities have different ways of solving problems, right? And why aren't we enhancing or understanding how they solve problems and they tackle problems? A child in an urban school will have a different experience to a child in a less urban school. A child in a less urban school knows where the food comes from, knows that here are the crops. A child in an urban school knows that their food comes from a box. Who is more advantaged? It's the child at the less urban school,
Yes.
because they understand the system. Whereas the child in the urban school, everything comes from the box.
Yes.
Right? So they don't understand that there's a whole different approach being used out there. So we should leverage that opportunities and that knowledge in our learning. So is there a disparity? My answer is no, there is no disparity. Because if we work from a position of poverty, then there is. But if we work from a position of abundance, then we have no problem. We are now encouraging people. We see opportunities at every step as opposed to seeing problems. So that's the mindset that I take. These are opportunities for us to better ourselves. Because as soon as you say, for example, you're from a rural school, what does that mean? Immediately you would believe, I come from a school that is not so good. I come from a community that is not so good. Right? The urban schools are better. And that creates this whole dialogue that I'm from a less better space. And I don't like that narrative. I don't support that narrative. What I support is that each person comes with their own set of knowledge, and we need to leverage that knowledge in our better understanding of science and our community.
Of course, definitely. My next question is, what are some of the challenges that you face in developing a community of practice, and what do you think needs to be done to tackle those challenges?
So, So there are no challenges. There are opportunities.
Right.
So in opportunities for communities of practice, like in the STEM space, there are opportunities at every level. You would have heard a number of times teachers and NGOs saying we are under-resourced. We do not have appropriately skilled people. We do not have teachers who are able to support this. Now I see opportunities. There are so much of young, enthusiastic people in this country. Why are we not using them in these spaces? Why aren't we not getting them into the science and technology spaces? But they must be willing to come in there. For example, at UNISA, we have MOOCs, which are massive open online courses, totally free. Totally free. You come in, you can get trained on coding and robotics, you get a certificate of attendance, and you can take that, go back to your community and share that knowledge with them. That's an opportunity. And by building these opportunities and by taking advantage of these opportunities, people who are not employed at the time start getting skills where instead of becoming workers, they become science entrepreneurs. Now they are creating spaces that will create different opportunities for them. So I see opportunities at all levels.
Okay. And language barrier. I think that some of the things that was not spoken about in the conference. We know that learners they at school and they are taught in their home language. They're being taught maths and science and economics in their own home language. But then when they get to university, they now have to switch to English. Do you think this is something that needs to change? Is it something that's a challenge in the science industry?
See, in the science space, it is a challenge.
Okay.
Right? Science is spoken in English. All the academic journals, all of the leading scientists speak in English. Whether they are from China, from France, or from the USA, they all speak in English. Our journals are all in English. Now the level of English in those journals is very different from the level of English the two of us speak. So there is a different type of English over there as well.
Okay.
And there are separate communities which have separate language and separate understandings. Right? For example, we would hear statistics, right? So somebody would tell you, and if you look at the news report and the weather report, they would tell you there is a 60% chance of rain. Right? That is based on a statistical model. Right? And in that statistical model, it's not a 60%, it's between 59, 60, 61. Right? And it is a probability. So it is a 60% probability that it might rain. Right? There is a particular language that goes with it. And that language, we need to understand. Now, if somebody is taught in their home language, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing because it's helping them, skill themselves. Simultaneously to that, they should be learning other languages, right? English, any other language, because it helps them. Now, what we tend to do is we forget that South Africa is part of Africa, and it's a much bigger space, right? The vast majority of people in Africa speak French, not English. Right? So there's a different opportunity over here. Right? Increasingly, with more Chinese influence, I would argue that we should be teaching Mandarin in our schools. Right? So we need to look at what is going on in the broader community and in the broader space for us to develop students and people who can fit into that economy and fit into that space. So we might fixate on English is a problem. English is changing, the world is changing. When we are expected to speak in Mandarin, then what are we going to do?
We're supposed to learn.
Yeah, we are supposed to learn. So these are all opportunities. And it is not a problem if a child learns in their mother tongue. What we should be teaching our children is problem solving skills. So that they should go to university and be able to apply the skills that they have learnt in school in that space. And it doesn't matter whether they apply the skills, if they learnt it in English, Afrikaans, Zulu, Xhosa, Sotho, Pedi, or whatever it is. We want somebody who can think.
Of course.
Right? And once they have the ability to solve a problem, writing it down is not such an issue. For example, the Chinese, right? Mother tongue, Mandarin, there are many variations of Mandarin. All of the scientists write in English. All in English. And they submit to some of the most prestigious journals, in their fields, and they get in. But they trained and they have to do that. So that is what I see happening here. There's multiplicity. There's more than one way to do something. We can't say we're only choosing this and we're going to ignore this. No. English is the language of business. English is the language of science. English, is how we share knowledge. Right? If we want to change that, then we have a community of practice and we start writing in that spaces, so people become more empowered to share their feelings. So that's nothing wrong with that. That's a good approach.
You also spoke about frugal science. Can you just explain to me a bit what that is?
So frugal science is the approach of using existing technologies, repackaging them to solve current problems. For example, and we look at South Africa, right? We are struggling with load shedding, right? Now, what happens to a scientist or a doctor who needs to take a blood sample from somebody and break the blood up into its different components? His centrifuge is not working, right? So frugal science says there has to be a different approach to do this. And the father of frugal science is, I think, is an MIT graduate, right? And he runs a program over there. Argue that we should use the technologies around us to solve that problem. So what he did was he took a kaleidoscope, that's those two wheels, and we would put colors on the side, and we put two rubber bands through, and we would spin it around, right?
Okay.
And we would see the patterns of that, right? And we'd see, so what he did, he made a centrifuge using that technology. Put a little bit of blood in, spin it around, and it separates into its components, and then that you could stop, as opposed to lugging around this massive centrifuge. So it's about reusing existing technologies and approaches to solve a current problem.
Establishing opportunities.
Opportunities, that is exactly what it is.
Of course. And what are some of the topics in the conference that piqued your interest that you think you can further explore?
So this has been a really eye-opening space. What I see is a lot of enthusiastic teachers, a lot of enthusiastic stakeholders in the form of NGOs and government. Right? So there's a massive amount of opportunities here. What has piqued my interest, and it has nothing to do with technology, it has to do with the desire by these teachers, NGOs and government to propel science, engineering and technology forward. That I'm really excited about. Science, engineering, maths is all about one thing: people. Right? People. Right? And if people are enthused to work in those spaces, then we are creating a society that is for the better. And I'll give you two examples. Right? If we do a bad job now on our STEM subjects, we would have two major problems. Right? When we need an engineer to build a bridge, he's going to have a deficit in his or her knowledge. Would we be comfortable walking or driving over the bridge? The answer is no. But everybody would say, listen, bridges are not my problem, that's somebody else's problem. Right? When we go to a medical doctor, will we ask the doctor, can I see your degree to see which university you came from? We won't, because we trust that doctor, because they went through the university system, By that, they went through the education system, so we know from grade 1 all the way up to that level, they were actually trained. We, in our greatest time of need, when we go to the medical doctor, we trust that he or she is doing what's in our best interest. But if we are producing children with deficits in the STEM knowledge, we are going to produce medical practitioners who will have deficits. So when I retire and I go to that doctor, I'm in trouble. When you retire and you go to that, you're in trouble. Right? So this is about creating a society and creating people that will take this knowledge forward. There are opportunities at each level, and it is a chain, it is linked all the way from the little child all the way to the 90-year-old man or lady. It is linked. And by us promoting science, engineering, maths and technology, we are keeping that link working.
Of course. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Some advice maybe to young learners?
Yes. See, science, engineering, technology is simple. If you believe it is hard, you are self-sabotaging. Don't sabotage yourself. It is easy. There are many resources out there that you could use. You have to find them. Right? If you have a cell phone, you have the world in your hand. Don't go onto TikTok and look at what people are doing on their two-second videos, right? Throwing tea at each other or doing something for a laugh. That comedy does not help. Right? Go and find things that will help you understand a problem. You can self-teach. A number of people are saying that I learned to program by myself. Self-teach. Empower yourselves. Understand that this is what I can do. And nobody will stop you. You are doing this in the privacy of your own home or wherever it is. Use those opportunities to empower yourself. And you will be extremely good at the STEM subjects. It is not hard at all. It is not hard. Do not self-sabotage. And if somebody tells you it is hard, and if somebody tells you you're not good at it, ignore them. Ignore them, ignore them, ignore them, and persevere. Because if you don't persevere, you fall into that trap. And you fall into their trap because they had a misgiving about maths or about science or about technology because they were bad at it. Right? You are not bad at it. The world is your oyster. Go there, grab it, and understand it. So for the learners, at whatever level you are, it is absolutely not hard. Anybody tries to tell you to do something different, you stick to your guns and you say, this is what I'm going to do. And you persevere, persevere, persevere. It is extremely easy. I'm telling you all, it is easy. I came from a school in a small town that I never even saw a Bunsen burner. And now I'm a professor. Because I never let anybody tell me that I should do something different. So every child has the ability. Go there and do it.
Professor Singh, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you, Charles.
How many was it?
It is 2 eyes.
I didn't see it.
So when your brain goes here, right? At the bottom here, right?